So, a friend recently shared a video with me from a therapist whose name is Shahem McLaurin. I think that's how you pronounce it. They are a personality and a really amazing therapist who shares amazing content on TikTok and Instagram. And the video was them talking about how people want to create community, but want to do so without conflict resolution skills. And it got me thinking about why so many of us have so many challenges with conflict, and how we either, kind of live at two polar opposite ends of the spectrum. Some of us are completely conflict avoidant. It does not feel safe to have conflict. And then the other opposite end of the spectrum is this overly kind of more of the aggressive, like always looking to fight. And without healthy conflict, I would say transformation or resolution skills, we really can't build the bonds for healthy relationships, because we don't know how to work through things together. And it doesn't always mean that we stay in relationship with the person, but it does mean that we know how to effectively communicate what's going on over here, and perhaps even more importantly, hear and understand what's happening over there, and actually be able to communicate between those two experiences. So many of us grew up in environments or grew up without blueprints of healthy conflict. A lot of us have nervous systems that tell us it's not safe to engage with conflict for a myriad of reasons, either because of things that we saw or things that we experienced ourselves. So, a huge part of conflict resolution or conflict transformation, engaging in conflict in a healthy way, yes, are absolutely communication skills. But before any of that, it's actually creating safety in our nervous system, creating safety and space in our nervous systems to actually even have the capacity to be with conflict in the first place, to not want to immediately fight, immediately freeze, immediately want to run away, or go into people pleasing mode. So it's understanding, how do I create space first and foremost in my body, in my nervous system, and safety, and then how do I communicate in a healthy way from that place. So the first, I guess I'll make a couple of videos, but today's is gonna focus on conflict avoidance. So conflict avoidance is generally the flight. When we're talking about fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, is generally speaking, again, we're using broad strokes here. The flight, when we avoid, when we're like, ooh, can't, I'm gonna avoid. So sometimes that's like, I'm not even gonna engage in conflict. I'm not gonna have this conversation. I'm gonna pretend like it's not happening. And then, it's not like those things go away, but they might get suppressed. The problems eventually might get bigger to the point where then it is an explosive thing, but we're generally avoiding conflict. So if you're new to my channel, you can check out some of my earlier videos where I go through what EFT is, how it works, what it does. And in this video specifically, I'm going to invite you to think of a situation maybe that is recent, that's happening right now, or maybe it's a conflict that or challenging conversation that that you need to have in the future. And just notice what happens in your body. So choose something that's not like level 10. Don't choose the most stressful thing that you can think of. I'm not there. There's not a practitioner there to help you. So just choose something that's like a 5. This can be maybe a conversation or a challenging experience, perhaps that's upcoming or that's happening now with a coworker. Maybe it's with a friend. Maybe it's with a partner. But again, choose like a level 5. Don't go any higher than that. So notice what happens in your body. Notice any sensations that come up. And I'd like you to focus, if possible, on one specific aspect of this challenging scenario or conversation that feels like it makes you want to go away. Like it makes you want to fly away literally, or to avoid it. Is it the tone of voice in the other person? Is it the words that you are afraid they are going to say? Or is it you're afraid of what you might say? So pick one specific thing that feels like it's causing you to want to avoid this situation. And again, notice what happens in your body. And when you're ready, you can start tapping on the side of your hand. And as always, use your words. Use your words. EFT is always best when it's specific to you. So if what I'm saying doesn't resonate, change it. I'm not there. And even if I was, I'd be like, change it. Okay, so go ahead and start tapping on the side of the hand and saying, even though I have this feeling in my body, and go ahead and say what the feeling is, what the sensation is. When I think about this potential or current conflict, I choose to have compassion for myself. And continuing on the side of the hand, even though there's this one aspect of this conflict that's causing me to feel, and say the sensation that you feel in your body. I choose to have compassion for myself. And right here, right now, I'm safe and I'm okay. And last time on the side of the hand, even though I'm feeling all of this, and then just, again, say out loud, where do you feel the sensation in your body? When I think about this conflict, name out loud, go ahead and say a name. Say, I choose to have compassion for myself. And I honor my experience exactly as it is. Okay, let's go ahead and tap on the top of the head. And just taking a moment here and bringing to mind the person or the scenario and just letting it kind of create an experience in your body, bring it to your mind's eye. And then tapping on the eyebrow point and just taking a breath here. Moving to the side of the eye, repeating after me. This conflict. Moving underneath the eye, this conflict with, and go ahead and say who the either current, maybe it's happening right now, or upcoming, like it needs to happen, conflict with. Moving underneath the nose and repeating after me. I can feel it in my, and go ahead and say, when you think of this conflict, where do you feel it in your body? Is it a pit in your stomach? Is it tightness in your chest? Moving to the chin. I feel all of this discomfort and sensation in my, and go ahead and say where you feel it. Moving to the collarbone point. I don't want to engage. Tapping underneath the arm. It doesn't feel safe. Moving to the top of the head. Conflict does not feel safe. This conflict does not feel safe. Moving to the eyebrow point. And as you tap here, begin to bring up what exactly, that one specific detail of the conflict or the challenging conversation or challenging scenario, what specific detail feels uncomfortable, feels the most activating for you. Moving to the side of the eye and just saying, this one specific detail makes it feel very unsafe. Moving underneath the eye, this detail of, and then go ahead and say it. Is it the tone of voice of the person that you're afraid of? Is it what they might say? Is it what you might say? Moving underneath the nose, is it the fear of what might happen to the relationship? Moving to the chin, and just saying, I give this fear and this stress a voice. Moving to the collarbone point, And just validating yourself and saying, it makes sense that I feel this way. Moving underneath the arm. It makes sense that I feel this. And go ahead and say what the sensation is that you feel in your body. Tapping on the top of the head. And as you tap here, ask that sensation in your body, if you could speak right now, what would you say? Tapping on the eyebrow point. As you tap here, just allow that stress, that dysregulation that you're feeling as you think about that detail. Let it speak. Give it a voice. It can say, I'm scared of conflict. It doesn't feel safe. Moving to the side of the eye. What if we don't agree? What if they get mad at me? What if I get mad at them? Moving underneath the eye. What if they raise their voice? What if something bad happens to the relationship? Moving underneath the nose and just saying, the more I tap, the more I give space to these thoughts and these feelings. Moving to the chin, not because they're true or not to make them more true. Collarbone, but to release them from my body. Tapping under the arm, so that I can feel a little bit more space and safety. Tapping on the top of the head in my own body, regardless of what's happening around me. Moving to the eyebrow point. And as you tap here, ask yourself, what might I need to feel a little bit more safe, either before this conversation or during this conversation? Tapping on the side of the eye. What might help me feel more grounded, more safety in my body? Tapping underneath the eye. Maybe it's tapping. Maybe it's creating a certain time and place where you can have the conversation that makes you feel more safe. Tapping underneath the nose, but just allow yourself to contemplate and tune into your body. What might help me make me feel more safe? Tapping on the chin and saying, I'm open to the possibility that I can handle this conversation or scenario or person. Tapping underneath the arm. And the more safety and space that I create in my body, moving to the top of the head, the more grounded and regulated I can be in the moment. Tapping on the eyebrow point so that I can create necessary boundaries. Moving to the side of the eye, I might listen to the other person in a new way. Moving underneath the eye, and maybe I can communicate my needs and my perspectives with much more ease. Tapping underneath the nose, and maybe that hasn't been my experience before, and that's okay. Moving to the chin, but I'm open to creating a new experience right here and now. Tapping on the collarbone point. As you tap here, just give yourself a moment to imagine and maybe verbalize, how do you want this to go? In a perfect world, how do you want to show up in this conversation? You can't control the other person, but how do you want to show up in this conversation or this scenario? And just tap here and just allow a few feelings. Maybe it's confidence, maybe it's courage, maybe it's clarity or ease, and just notice, what does that feel like in my body? What does groundedness feel like in my body? And just tap here for a moment and tap that into the body. Tapping underneath the arm, and just take one final deep breath here and saying thank you to your body for all of its wisdom. And you can stop tapping and just take a deep breath in. And when you think about that detail in the scenario that's causing you to feel activated and like you want to run away from the conflict, when you think about that detail now, notice what that feels like in your body. Notice if it's maybe less intense or more intense. If you need to tap more around it, you can. If you need to go through this again, you can. But like I said, the more that we can create space and safety in our body and our experience, the more we can show up in different ways when we do have to deal with conflict. And it's not to say it's going to go perfectly, but at least we can have more confidence and courage and clarity into what we're bringing. And a lot of times that can, not always, again, we can't always control the other person, but at least we know we showed up in the way that had integrity, and it actually might impact how the other person shows up. We're creating more space over here, so there's a chance that more space over there is being created. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know in the comments what your experience is, and I'll see you soon.